no matter who they are, no matter where they are on their journey, like we'll catch them. What I'm much more interested in is how we bring crypto and integrate it into the things that we're already doing and into the behaviors that are already like human, natural behaviors.
Welcome to W3G, the official podcast for Mice and XYZ and your go-to hub to learn the latest developments in growth and marketing in the wild and wonderful world of Web3. I'm Julie Octaviano, head of DAO operations and client success at Mice and XYZ.
And I'm Blake Minho Kim, co-founder of Mice and XYZ. Each week, we'll talk to leaders in Web3 about the state of the industry, what they're building, and best practices around all things Web3 marketing and growth. W3G is a place for everyone to get smart in public together, whether you're Web3 native or novice.
So tune in each week as we talk to the best and brightest so we can all grow together in the world of Web3. Today we'll be speaking with Deana Burke, co-founder of Boys Club, a social collective bringing new voices to the new internet, and she also heads up marketing at Celo, an L1 blockchain ecosystem that unlocks crypto to anyone globally.
In this episode, we discuss everything from the importance of authenticity in building a strong community, the many evolutions of Boys Club, and what marketing in L1 is like. This conversation was equal parts fun and insightful as we explored Deana's multiple roles within the world of Web3.
So without further ado, let's get into it. Here's episode number 18 with Deana Burke. Hi, Deana. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're awesome. Well, first of all, obviously want to thank you so much for joining us on the pod today. We're so excited to chat with you about Boys Club, Celo, everything else that you have going on, and obviously marketing. So with that said, we typically like to kick things off with origin stories. So would love to hear about, your personal background and journey. How did you get into Web3, crypto, marketing, Celo, and then obviously eventually starting Boys Club?
It's always hard to know where to start the story exactly. I guess I'll say my background's in marketing. Worked at agencies started my career in agencies, worked at agencies for many years, and then started marketing agency with a colleague. Did that for a couple of years, really working at the intersection of kind of emerging tech and marketing. And then in 2017, I got really into Bitcoin. I was really, really into Bitcoin, really drawn into it initially because of the price action. It was the last crazy bull market where prices were going insane. And I was like, man, there's a lot of people who are making a lot of money. And I want to be one of those people that's making money.
How did you hear about Bitcoin? Just out of curiosity.
I first heard about it like years prior. A friend, I think there was like a Wired article in 2014 or something like that someone like was talking to me about it then. And I was like, math, money, like, no, thank you, not for me, and set it aside, which was honestly like fatal mistake. Could have been have a lot of more money than I have now if I had listened to that friend in 2014. But then at the time I was at IndieGogo, which is like a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign. I was in New York, and just like IndieGogo in particular is like, it's for entrepreneurs to sell their wares. And so it was just in like a very entrepreneurial like tech community. And I think just being adjacent to that had me exposed to crypto at that time. And yeah, at first I will say I was drawn to it because of the money. And then as I learned more about the technology, I just got really excited about what I felt like it could make possible for the things that I care about. Also, I didn't make any money. I was like, okay, I'm going to do some like trading. And I was like, got really into like really bad altcoin trading. And it was just gambling. Like, it's just gambling by any other name, and just lost money. But then luckily I was like, okay, what is here? And like kind of investigated it further, and then got really into it, and it became much more than money. And so that was 2017. Then 2018, I quit IndieGogo, and I
just to interject real quick. I mean, that's the crypto rite of passage, right? Like, I think that's what draws a lot of people in, is like, it's the money. And then like,
totally.
And right now, I mean, I'm sure it's like flipped, right? Where it's like alts, and then eventually people are like, oh yeah, this Bitcoin thing, like it kind of retains value. But like,
yeah, I think the proxy is probably in this past bear market is, it wouldn't have been altcoins, would have been NFTs, but it's the same thing where they're like, oh, okay, I'm here for NFTs, but like, what's going on here? Like, what does this enable? Like, what is the sort of underlying tech?
There's always a new meta. Yeah.
Totally. So yeah, 2018, quit my job, and I started a company and built a product that was functionally a Bitcoin wallet, but it was designed very intentionally for teenage girls. So I've since sort of falling down the rabbit hole of falling in love with Bitcoin and falling in love with like the technology, became really interested in figuring out ways to bring it into other communities that weren't there in crypto in 2017. Certainly 2017 in crypto was like Lamborghinis in front of like it's bad now. It was terrible then. And
I live in Miami, so I know exactly what you're describing.
You get it, Julie. And yeah, just became really obsessed with this idea of if we were designing a new money from scratch with a new set of values at the helm, how could we do that in a way that's radically different, that brings a lot of different people to the table? And I've been very interested in figuring out ways to bring women, in particular girls, to that. And so built a DApp, I suppose, that was kind of intended to be like a safe, well-lit, low-stakes way to have your first interaction with crypto, specifically Bitcoin. It was very social. Did that for 2 years, 2018, 2019, notoriously hard times for the crypto industry. So it was just bear market, couldn't get any meaningful traction, couldn't raise my second round of funding. Like it was just like tough times in crypto. And then did some other stuff for a minute, like kind of cleanse the palate from crypto. And then 2020, we started Boys Club, which was really like, it's interesting because if you had asked me in 2019, I've been like, man, I'm just like a big founder failure story of like, this didn't work and it didn't work in all these spectacular ways. But I wouldn't have started Boys Club without the sort of experience that I had with my first company. So really grateful. And honestly, it's like, it's looking at a very similar problem area. And so that's kind of been with me for many years. And yeah, I've been doing Boys Club for a year and a half and then working at Celo as head of marketing as well, which is a layer one.
I definitely want to dig into that. 2 questions. Well, one point is like, it makes so much more sense that you have such an, like, to me, it always felt like you and Tash have such like an organic understanding, especially you like being in blockchain for so long, or like long for people that have been in blockchain. You had such like a, I don't know if it's like empathize or like understanding of where the blockage or pain point is for, you know, the everyday woman or girl to even come into the space and begin to understand, especially people that are non-technical at that. So like, it makes a lot of sense knowing now that you built that, and forgive me, I don't think I caught the name, the first company you were just talking about. Prior to Boys Club.
I've been looking at this space for a while and like honestly took a lot of the mistakes that I made with that first company into how we've been designing and doing Boys Club that I think have really been instrumental in getting it to where it's at today. So, you know, just a note for any entrepreneur out there who's like feeling the pain of something that might not be working the way that they wanted it to or thought that it would, like the path is winding and you can end up in areas that you can't anticipate. And so I wish I could like teleport that message to myself in 2019 because it was like, this life sucks.
Well, you made it out. You made something incredible out of that experience, or I guess like what at the time felt like a failure. The other follow-up question before we get into Celo, because I definitely want to get into that, is, well, one, I also want to understand how you do both because and you're a mom. So like, I just genuinely don't know how one human like can do everything you've been doing. But going back to like, you know, you starting Boys Club, the one thing I also do love, because I listen to your guys' podcast, I'm obviously in the Discord regularly, but specifically with the podcast, I love the riff of like, Tash is like a little bit of the newbie, now that she's not anymore, but especially in the early days, like you're kind of like the expert and she's the newbie, and it's like a really good balance. So would love to know, like, how did you and Tash connect? How did you meet? I know you've probably told this story a million times, but yeah, I would love to know like how you guys kind of came up with the idea and how it all came to fruition.
Yeah. So we both worked together at IndieGogo. So like early in my career when I had started that agency, and then that agency was acquired by IndieGogo. So I then went to go work at IndieGogo, and then Natasha was working there, and that's where we met. We weren't really friends there, but I was leaving to go do my startup, and she was leaving to go do another startup that was in the travel industry. And we really connected around kind of just like a passion around early stage startups, being entrepreneurs, like having ambition as a woman. I don't know, like that feels kind of trite to say, but is true. It's definitely like a defining part of both of our personalities that I think is something that is useful in our friendship and business relationship as well. And so anyway, that's how we met and then started Boys Club. Really, it came about organically, I'd say. Like I had been talking about crypto for years in our friendship and she was always kind of like, I'm not interested in this. Like,
sounds like me and my fiance.
Yeah, she was like, not for me, cool for you. I love it for you and that you're so excited about it. But like, she's like a fashion art girly, like is not interested in the like black box of what it looked like at the time, which was technology and finance, which is like, if you're not into it, two super boring things that are like meshed together. But then I'd say, not this past summer, but the summer before, 2020, I suppose, we all saw crypto, Web3, whatever you want to call it, like start to seep into culture in interesting ways and start to rub up against things that she was interested in. She started to come into sports with Top Shot or into art with some of the stuff that was happening around NFTs. And so she kind of was all of a sudden like, wait, isn't this thing that you've been talking about for years? Like, what's going on here? And like, what is this? And so that kind of got her to sit up and like take notice. And we basically I just sat down with her and I'm like, I'm going to onboard you to what's happening. I'm going to like bring you through some Discords. I'm going to walk you through crypto Twitter. You can ask me like any dumb question that you have about how the space works. Like it's safe, social environment that we're going to create together for you to like understand this because I want you to know it. I think it's important for you and your career and what you're thinking about and what you want to be like pouring your energy into. I think it's important to have that context. So we had that moment. And then from that moment, we're like, man, we want to do this with so many other people. And so then we started Boys Club really with that, where initially it was just like, we just wanted to get at first some women into a room to talk about what was happening in this world. And then we had our first event and then it kind of snowballed from there where we were like, oh man, okay, wow, there's a lot of demand for this type of programming, but also this type of community for someone who's like curious and wants to learn more about what's happening in tech and apply it to their careers or apply it to their lives. So that's kind of how it started.
Boom. I mean, that's quite the origin story, right? And I love that because I think it really speaks to, we have some members who are like real crypto OGs, right? They've been in Bitcoin since the early days. And, something they point out is like, because they have like that context. And I think you're similar, a little bit later, but still quite early in terms of like, there are all these ways of like, I think the Bitcoin OGs were very like crypto anarchist, kind of a bit more like pure libertarian, like digital money. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think like 2017, people started to get more involved who are a bit more mainstream, maybe like folks like yourself. Like 2017 is when I got involved because similar story. Like I had friends who had Bitcoin, but same thing. I was like, or actually it's different. Where for me, it was like too speculative. But when people were talking about Ethereum and smart contracts, it's like, oh, you can like build things with this. Like this is cool.
Nice.
But I think now it's like 2020. Like that was very much like the beginning of the mainstream moment, right? Just like you're talking about, is like when culture and when companies and art really start to get involved. Like it's not just a money thing.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the future of the internet. And so like seeing that transition was really cool. So I love it. And Boys Club is helping us get there. And we'll dive into that in a second, but I do want to make sure we also can talk about Celo real quick and like how you got involved there, how that transition has been, and actually like tell us a bit more about it. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I wear many hats in my professional life. So I'm used to taking them on and off all throughout the day, honestly. Yeah. So Celo is a layer one. It's really focused on this idea of regenerative finance or regenerative economics, designing money or a technology around money that is non-extractive, that adds value into communities or ecosystems. And that all sounds like very heady and intellectual, but like functionally it's a layer one, it's EVM compatible, and the Celo community is made up of a lot of really incredible builders and founders who are thinking deeply about like real world use cases, micro loans for Bolivian farmers, or, payment rails in Lagos for microtransactions. Like it's a very global community, and it's very focused on how can it come to life and be a benefit for actual people. So it's a really special ecosystem, a really special community. I was drawn to it because it felt so different as I was looking for some place to sort of call home. It just is clearly like led by a different set of values that's unique, at least in crypto. And so it's a lovely bunch. And yeah, it's been really gratifying to work there and to support the entrepreneurs that are building with Celo.
What does L1 marketing look like, or at least on the Celo's end?
L1 marketing is, first of all, like being defined as we go, right? Like it's kind of one of these scenarios where we're building the track as we're going down the track. And I personally love that because I thrive in that type of sort of like unknown and, needing to be agile and respond to what might not be like very strong signals in the market, but like kind of being able to duck and dive. I know for a lot of marketers, that's a challenging environment to be in. So certainly not for the faint of heart, but, primarily we're thinking about how to attract builders to the ecosystem. So how do we get builders who have intentions to build the types of projects that we're interested in having on Celo? And how do we get in front of them? How do we showcase all the incredible things around the tech? And how do we get them to not only consider Celo, but like launch stuff onto Celo? And so a lot of the work that we're doing is around the flywheel of a L1. It's like attracting the builders in and then like helping to promote the projects once they're live. And then, obviously there's a ton of brand marketing to make sure that you're having share of voice across the different layer ones. So yeah, it's been a really fun year and a half trying to figure out that puzzle. I'd say it's the shape of that work changes. I mean, I guess as all of it does in crypto, like depending on the state of the market. So, it's a dynamic environment, but it's been great.
I want to definitely dig into how you've leveraged, I guess, your marketing experience, not only just in, blockchain, but even before, obviously, into Boys Club, because I think one thing that everyone can agree on is the marketing, the brand marketing for Boys Club is like top notch. But I just realized we should probably give listeners a like 1 to 2 liner breakdown on what Boys Club is. We're over here talking about Boys Club, so I'm just trying to be mindful for listeners who like actually aren't coming into this episode knowing what it is. So yeah, would love to have you just break it down. What is the spiel of what Boys Club is?
Yeah, so Boys Club is a social collective that's working to bring new voices to the new internet. We do that through events, we do that through podcasts, we do that through newsletters and, traditional quote unquote media channels. And we also we're calling it a social collective. If your listeners are super fluent in Web3, you can also think of it as a DAO, which basically acts as like a test bed and incubator for ideas that sort of originate from the community to like see if they have legs to come together. One example of that is our zine, the Boys Club zine that we did a couple months ago. That was an idea that originated from the community. And basically the person who came up with that idea like found other people to collaborate within Boys Club to build it, got some money from the Treasury and like launched it. And so that was something that came from the DAO or the social collective. That's kind of a media example, but we're hoping that there's other types of both digital and physical products that come from the DAO or the social collective as well. So that's kind of the meat of it. I mean, I think also Boys Club is different things to different people. Some people just like to hang out in the Discord and talk about skincare and like really don't care very much about crypto and Web3, but like have found some like-minded friends in there, which is amazing. And some people are like really just listen to the podcast and are super into crypto news. So like it is a mirror to the things that you care about, but that's kind of the current way that we're describing what it is.
Yeah. Very great that you said the current way, because something else I was gonna bring up, which as you already know, I listen to the podcast. I'm in the Discord.
Thank
I've been
you.
a member for like, I think a year and a half now. So one thing that I do love about you, what you and Natasha do in the podcast is just the ever evolving definition of what boys club is, as you kind of just alluded to. I love that you both don't like keep it in this, you know, square, so to speak, but rather you just embrace that it's going to change and it's going to continue to change, and that's totally okay. So on that, I would love to hear more about, you know, what the evolution has been like. I know you kind of touched on the early beginnings of Boys Club when you and Tash first met and what the purpose was, but I guess how you would describe the evolution of Boys Club from inception to today.
I think that one thing that's always been an important and defining value with Boys Club has been embracing a sense of experimentation, and that being true in like not only what we do at Boys Club, but also like how we think about ourselves and how we think about what Boys Club is. And so, yeah, what you're hearing on the podcast for people who don't have context is like us just basically challenging each other to try and define what Boys Club is every week, because I don't know, it's kind of just a useful exercise in like, where are we at, where are things at, and like what's the language to use to try and communicate where things are at. So yeah, so we started and it was just events. We're like, okay, we're gonna do events. We got a ton of traction really quickly, and like things were selling out like crazy, and we're like, all right, let's just like do events. And then all of a sudden, and the events were basically like, how can we get at first women in a room listening to other women talk about what they're doing in crypto, and hoping that listening to those women and hopefully being inspired can act as like a catalyst for you as the watcher or the recipient to then use as fuel to go and do your own research and like start your own crypto journey, which needs to be self-fueled. Like, we've never positioned Boys Club really as like onboarding, where we're like sitting with you and holding your hand and, I don't know, setting up your first wallet. Like, we have had some stuff where like we bring people in to talk about it, but I think that we've always had a deep conviction that in order to overcome the friction, there's so much friction in this space, so much that you need to want to do it. And so all that we've tried to do at Boys Club is to like inspire that want and provide as much resources as we can to help you if you do find that want and you want to like explore it further. So really being really mindful not to position ourselves as like evangelists, but just like, we're here to catch you and help you along the way if you're interested. So anyway, that's just like some context. But yeah, started with events, and then all of a sudden, very quickly, there was a bunch of people who were kind of standing around the project being like, I want to get involved. And we were both like, okay, great. I don't know. And then we were like, maybe there's a DAO. Maybe this is a DAO. I don't know what a DAO is. I have no idea. But maybe this is a DAO, because there's a bunch of people who want to like work together on something that has kind of this shared vision that's coming together. And so the Boys Club DAO came together very organically as a result of this project just having like for whatever reason, some gravitational pull that people wanted to be a part of and wanted to help like build into and pour into. And so then all of a sudden we were DAO and events. And then the DAO was doing some work, and we were like, maybe we should like try and get the Treasury some money. And so then we launched an NFT collection that was for supporters that funded the Treasury. And then all of a sudden we were like kind of a legitimate DAO that had a Treasury and a bunch of people who were like contributors. And we were still, for the record, very much figuring out how to DAO. Like, we have no idea. We have a little bit more of an idea now, but like certainly in those early days, truly no clue. And then I'd say like probably 6 months ago, we had always had a newsletter as part of sort of the cadence of communication with members and just sort of general audience around Boys Club, because honestly, it's something that I really enjoy doing personally. But then we're like, man, one of the pain points of the DAO was context sharing constantly, like communicating and context sharing for people is so critical in order to have the DAO be like at all effective. You need to be sharing what's happening across all these different places all the time. And so really the idea for the podcast was that's just like a really neat and easy way for Natasha and I to like be sharing about what's going on in Boys Club with a lot of people at once. And so then we started podcasting, and then we're like, I don't know, are we kind of a media company? Is there some money here maybe where we can support ourselves? Because up until then, now there's been no money. Like we haven't been paying ourselves in the Treasury or anything like that. Money's just sitting in the Treasury. And so we've been kind of the whole way looking for ways to bring some sort of sustainability into pay ourselves so we can keep doing this work. And so the media started to emerge as maybe an option for that. And so I don't know. That's why, like, just to say it's been a journey, and we're in this point now, but I'm sure if we have another conversation in 6 months, it will have a totally different shape. And we're totally at peace with that and very open about that being sort of what we want to do. Like we want to be sort of experimenting at the edges and building in public and figuring it out together. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how we've approached it.
And actually, and that kind of brings me to, so like even hearing that journey is so interesting and it feels very organic, but I'm curious, like these things don't just happen, right? Like there's a lot of work that goes into it. You know, you guys are you guys are doing a lot of things, right? So I would love to, you know, as this is a marketing podcast, right? And we want to hear the kind of like war stories or just the things that you went through just to even get to that point of those evolutions. So we'd love to hear a bit more about, you know, as you're going through this journey, going from events to building a DAO to building out the media brand, like what were some of the biggest like marketing wins that maybe you didn't even anticipate? And then what were some of the things that maybe they don't have to be losses, right? But just things that didn't quite go the way you thought they would. And, you know, they were a bit surprising.
Just taking a step back, did you guys come into Boys Club, given both you and Natasha have marketing experience, did you guys think of was there a strategy behind marketing Boys Club? Like, was that something that was even consciously like something you guys knew you were going to put an effort behind marketing? Or was it just, like you said, kind of figuring it out as you go organically, lots of just like organic traction?
I would not call what we had a strategy. It was honestly, I think the biggest, like as I'm thinking about sort of wins and losses, I'm thinking what's been a clear win since the beginning is having a defined voice for Boys Club that, and I suppose for the brand, yeah, just having a defined voice. And I will say, like, just in terms of a lesson for me personally as a marketer, that that voice was very natural and is very natural and is truly an expression of fun. The more fun that Natasha and I are having with the content that we're making, or even with the sort of just ideas that we're having around Boys Club for events or for different merch things or for different product ideas that we're kind of dreaming up with the community, or even in meetings with the DAO, like the more fun that is there, true, like honest fun, the better the work is. And so I think that that's expressed in the Boys Club brand and the Boys Club voice. And that came about very organically. And that came honestly from us not having an agenda on what Boys Club was when we started it and what we wanted it to become when we started it. When we first started it, we're like, I don't know, like, let's just kind of talk about this and like get a community of people together. And at first the voice was like, just as a way to kind of attract people in that were kind of like-minded. But for me, I'm really present now, especially a year and a half into Boys Club, that product market fit is important for sure, but also like marketer product fit is really important. And I don't know that I'll ever be able to go back to marketing things that like don't feel like an extension of me. And I actually think that that's like a limitation as a marketer. I don't think that that's a good thing or something that we should like be striving for. I think it really narrows what I can work on in the future. But like, I just know that the Boys Club brand is like really just true to who Natasha and I are. And like, and I think that that's, I don't know, that's been a real win. I'd say just generally. L's, have a ton of them. Have a ton of L's. We can talk about those too.
I love that. And actually, that kind of reminds me, I mean, everything you say really resonates, right? Because I think it really does come down to, like, when we talk about marketing and brand and tone of voice and stuff, right? Like, I think people hear it, but I think it's very rarely like done very well, I guess, right? Like, anyone can say they have a tone of voice, anyone can say they have a brand, but like to actually do it is a whole other thing. And I think, yeah, kudos to you guys, because I think it really does come through in what you do. And I think particularly as you guys have, grown into media and events and all these things, like, it makes sense, right? Like, and especially in a space like crypto where people take themselves so seriously and are so focused on just like the tech and the blockchain and the products and changing the world and fighting the SEC and all this stuff. Like, let's just remember, like, at the end of the day, like, people have to actually want to participate in this thing.
Totally.
So it's really cool. I really like that. Well, and actually on that, right, I would also love to dive a bit deeper into, and this will, date this episode just a little bit, but I guess very recently, Parker, who's on your founding team, and I think, you guys were all part of this, just came out with your kind of, what would you call it? Like, end of launch of season 2, end of season 1, kind of like retro roadmap. Was reading through that literally last night, loved it. I think, ourselves, like, as a marketing DAO, there are a lot of like lessons where I was like, yeah, I can relate to that. Like, there are a lot of similarities in terms of the lessons learned. Would love to just hear a bit more about, like, thinking about season 2, and especially for our listeners who may not have read that, right? Better understanding, that transition point, right? Like, what's coming up the pipe? What were some of the biggest, you guys wrote about it, but just for those who may not have read it, right? Like, a quick summation from, in your own words, of, what does season 1 look like? What are you really excited about season 2 as you guys move into this next evolution? We'd love to hear a bit more about that.
The DAO experiment continues. It has been an experiment since day one. It will continue to be an experiment until I don't know when. I think we're always going to be trying to figure it out and get better at it. I think we have just some context for folks. So we decided to organize our DAO into seasons. And so we're sort of midway through season 2 and just posted kind of a retro in season 1 and sort of where we're headed for season 2 and beyond. And the reason for doing it in seasons, I would really recommend that for other DAOs. It helps quite a lot, I think, with like contributor management. It sounds more clinical than actually my intention, which is like people who've burned out in DAOs. Like, truly, it's burnout city. And so I think that having the seasonal container, one, helps contributors like understand what the scope is for how they'll be involved, and like it just gives it like something that feels tangible, and also helps you be more intentional about setting those goals for each guild or whatever within the season from the jump when you're getting people on board. Because otherwise you get into scenarios where people are coming on and off, and then there's context sharing. And there's like, my number one lesson with DAOs is, man, there's a lot of operational overhead, and there's a lot of noise and churn and like time spent and I won't say wasted, but like it's adjacent to wasted, and just in terms of like how much systems and process there is around managing a DAO. Now, I'll say on the flip side of that, we are fully at peace with paying that cost, because the upside of being able to like harness the energy from so many different types of people around a shared vision is incredible. And like, we wouldn't have been able to do half the amount of things that we've been able to do so far without having that and having those people and being able to harness that energy in that way. So it's worth it for us, but it's not without like just a lot of work to make sure that mostly you're just not wasting people's time. I think that was like the biggest lesson from season 1 was, man, it's really easy in a DAO to get into a situation where people are doing like busy work, or people don't have the right context to do the right work, or there's like weird communication between people that like, you need to address as quickly as you can before it gets out of control. And so we're just trying to do as many little experiments as we can to make sure that that's tightened up. And so, yeah, that's kind of like, I don't know, my emotional TLDR on the seasons of the DAO, but like happy to dig into any of the logistics of it. I think one other lesson that I would share and is big part of that retro is starting small. So we made a decision very early on with the DAO to contain it to just contributors. The DAO is just Boys Club contributors. There was another decision that we could have made, which was let's expand the DAO to the 2,000 people that are in the Boys Club Discord and have everyone be a part of the DAO. And sure, maybe there's like a few delegates who are doing the work and making those decisions, but like everyone's in it and everyone's, participating. And I think like directionally, that's where we want to go. But we recognize that we needed to start very small in order to be able to get there effectively. And I'm really glad we do that. And that's like my number one advice to anyone who's considering a DAO is to start with the smallest number of people possible, because like weird stuff is going to emerge in that first season that you couldn't have never anticipated. Like for us, the issue was like people weren't reading the proposals and voting the proposals. And I was like, okay, great. That's really good to know. And so now we can design for either how to incentivize people to read the proposals, or B, how to create systems so that like those people who are submitting proposals don't need to submit the proposals and they can just like do their work separately. So like it just reveals things really quickly. And if we had rolled that out to 2,000 people, there's just like a lot that you can't walk back. And it would have changed the whole face of it really quickly. So I don't know. That's like kind of two practical things.
Yeah. And no, that's really great. And I think we're very much aligned on that, because I think something, even when we started Myosin, right? Like that was Feb 2022. My co-founder, Simon, he reached out and said, Blake, we're starting marketing DAO. We're going to get the thousands of the best marketers across the world. We're going to put them in this DAO. And I'm like, number one, there aren't thousands of the best marketers in Web3. There's maybe like 1,000 marketers in Web3. Good luck. And then it was the same thing, which was like quality over quantity, right? Like, because I think the challenge that, and sometimes I feel like I'm like I want to like hit my head against the wall, because even I literally last night on Twitter I was going through and someone was still doing the whole. I think they're just like still very much like decentralization maxis for DAOs, right? DAO purists who are like, well, you need to have like. And I think the reality is like, as you're going through it and as we're going through it, right? The reality is like, it's still human coordination. It's still people, right? And like to be able to like incentivize and create those structures and to work with people, like those are relationships and trust that it doesn't form overnight. And when you have thousands of people, coordinating all these people to do one thing is incredibly difficult. This autonomous thing, like we can get there, but like that's the promised land. So
yeah, it's whatever the opposite of autonomous is, in my opinion. Yeah. It's like so could not be more human. I was talking to Ashley Keynes the other day. She's an incredible like DAO person. If you guys don't already know her, she's amazing. We were talking, actually, I don't know if she brought it up or not, but the idea of that, like you show up to a DAO, everyone shows up to a DAO like they're going to a party with a bag of chips. Everyone comes with a bag of chips and no one comes with the main dish when you're going to a potluck. And I think that like really rings true, where it's like, how do you instill a true sense of accountability and ownership in people? It's a paradigm shift for so many folks who don't come from that type of background. And it's important to bring people along and to like to show them this new way, but like it's a step change, and figuring out how to design for everyone showing up with like their full best self, bringing their main course is really hard. And we haven't solved for it, but I think it's like as a North Star, like that would be a great place to end up.
I think what we're finding is it's helpful to just tell people no more chips. We just want steak over here.
Yeah.
And we want mashed potatoes. We want some greens.
Totally.
Who's got it? And then just bring them in. Like just keep it really simple.
Yeah.
Clear. We'd love to very quickly talk about something that's at least been on my mind, right? Because I think with Boys Club, I think as you've talked about, like you guys are really good at bringing new voices to a new internet, I think is the way you guys call it, right? And, we are in the depths of the bear market. I think, people for a long time were talking so much about DAO infra, or sorry, not DAO infra, Web3 infra, which granted is important because you need to have the underlying tech to make this thing better. But at the same time, I think we're also seeing we need tools that people can actually use and products that people want to experience. So I feel like now the narrative is starting to shift towards more consumer crypto. I mean, that being the catchy phrase for it. So we'd love to kind of, hear your thoughts on that, right? So as you are, things that you're excited to see come to life in consumer crypto, like, do you have a take? Is that something you're thinking about, especially with Boys Club? And as you guys are thinking about products and other experiences or whatever, how we can, again, continue to not, I hear your point about like, we're not only trying to onboard, but at the end of the day, like, we do want to bring people into the space, right?
Yeah,
so I think
totally. It's a great question. And honestly, I've kind of changed my mind about it over the years, and more recently have been more and more convinced that you can't bring people to crypto. You have to bring crypto to people. And what I mean by that is like, not everyone cares about the tech and cares about like the decentralization. No, well, very few people do. And I think we can talk as much as we want around like how cool smart contracts are and all these different things, and even DAOs, like to a certain degree, like it's all great. Like there's 12 people who care about that framing, right? Like most of the people that I encounter as I go about my day, they care about whatever it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's not the framing for so many folks. And I think that I've just become more and more convinced that, yes, I will personally always have a space for anyone who's curious and who wants to learn more and like wants a safe space in order to do that. Like Boys Club is always going to be a great home for that person. And no matter who they are, no matter where they are on their journey, like we'll catch them. What I'm much more interested in is how we bring crypto and integrate it into the things that we're already doing and into the behaviors that are already like human natural behaviors. And so I think when we're thinking about the future of Boys Club specifically, we're thinking a lot about crypto and Web3 as like our stack and our like enabling layer, but thinking more and more about like how we're expanding sort of the front facing part of it into other domains that have maybe nothing to do with crypto, but are enabled with sort of crypto or Web3 technology, either through like loyalty points or through NFT rewards or through things like that aren't like, it's not the tech for the tech's sake. So that's kind of a roundabout way to answer a question, but that's kind of what we're thinking about more and more. Is it a skincare line that like has some sort of like voting mechanic or loyalty baked in on blockchain stuff, more towards that side than like how do we bring crypto to people?
So rapid fire questions, pretty self-explanatory. We will ask, you answer the first thing that comes to mind, and we have 4 of them. So I guess I'll just kick things off. What is a Web3 project, not including your own, so Celo and Boys Club are off limits, that you're most bullish on?
I'd say whatever Steph Alinsig is building, I'm bullish on her. I know you guys had her on last week. On-chain media
Vessel,
as
yes.
designed by Steph. That's what I'm most bullish on.
some nice cross promo. That's the way to do it. And we're really excited. I mean, go listen to the last episode. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, Steph's incredible.
Steph's got some great alpha. Yeah, this is one of our favorites. We ask every single person this. So past 12 months, what is your biggest professional learning?
I think it is to be willing and be excited to be wrong and embrace being wrong and not having like ego about it. I think that's been the biggest unlock for me over the past year.
I love it. Can I drill down one level deeper and ask, is there anything specific, or is it just like a bunch of different things and just all different learnings?
We've gotten a lot of things wrong about Boys Club over the past year.
And that's fine.
That's fine. Yeah, exactly. And I think like just being at peace with that and being okay with that it's powerful to embrace it. And I think like also knowing that there's not a right or wrong path. There is just the path, and like the decisions that you're making will lead you where they lead you. But like I think there's like a trap that you can get yourself into where you're like, is this right or wrong? Is this right or wrong? And it's like paralyzing. And I think just like being more at peace with like making decisions, and they'll open up certain things and you can't really anticipate it. So I don't know, it's kind of heady and vague, but that's where my head's at right now.
No, yeah, I can, especially with so many people. I think you said 2,000 community members now. I'm sure can be a little bit paralyzing knowing the impact of a decision that you or Natasha or both of you guys make. So yeah, that's great to hear.
That's something for us to like really soak in for ourselves, Julie. As I'm just thinking,
I mean,
about,
100%.
Yeah, we need to accept that.
It's going to happen. And it's okay. And I think the one thing, especially like touching on what you were talking about before, Deana, is like you guys have always and will always come from such an authentic, genuine, for lack of better, like good-hearted place, right? Like Boys Club is an extension of your guys' vision and your guys' voice or gals' voice. And I think as long as that stays, which it will, like mistakes will happen, but like the intention will always remain. And like, I think that literally like seeps into the community. Like the vibes are always like top notch. And, you know, you're saying there's a ton of L's and did a lot of things wrong, but like, as a member of the community, I would have never been able to tell because I just think everything just comes off so like fun to your, you know, your point and genuine. So
that's kind.
So yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah, I agree, Blake. Same with us. Always all have good intentions. Okay. So just for the sake of time, second to last one, if you had $1 million or whatever stable coin of your choice, what would you build in Web3 today?
I am declining this investment. I do not want to take on any.
That is a first.
We've never had that.
I'm like bootstrapping is kind of like my entire personality right now. So that's why I'm like, no, I'm not gonna give any of this away. I would build a Boys Club on-chain media empire. That's definitely where I'd put the money towards.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're already on the way there. You guys are.
So it's a crazy year. Lots of crazy stuff happening literally just this past week in the world of Web3 and crypto. But craziest predictions could be anything in Web3 by end of year 2023.
I'm not going to make a price prediction, but I do think and I don't know that this is
price
crazy.
Prediction, go.
Yeah, no, I don't think that this is crazy, but I do think that we're going to see a Bitcoin bull market before the end of the year for sure is what I'm betting on. But I don't know. That's kind of feeling like it's consensus over the past couple of days.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, we might already be starting that. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't think that's that crazy, actually. I mean, the happenings next year, there's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff. Also, a lot of stuff. Spiritually, emotionally, like my body is ready to get out of whatever market we're in right now. This cycle is done. We're ready. Yeah.
We're ready.
I'm partially willing it into existence as well.
Yeah. We got to manifest it.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the episode. The one last thing is just a chance to show yourself. Where can our listeners find you, Boys Club, Celo, just any and all things and social handles?
So we're at boysclub.vip. We have all our links there, which is a stupid website domain that was a decision we made early on and now we're stuck with. And it started as a joke, but now it's like we have to say it on all these podcasts. And we're like, man, this is so lame. And then, Celo.org. Check it out. It's a cool community. And that's me.
I just want to mention one thing, which I wasn't sure where it would organically fit in. So I just want to make sure we say it before we sign off, which is I actually have to give a shout out to Boys Club because that is actually how Julie and I met in the first place.
Oh my God. How did we forget to mention this? Yes.
Yeah, we should have just mentioned at the top of the,
Damn.
But yeah.
Good call, Blake.
I felt the need to mention that. I'm like, literally, Myosin would not be where we are because Julie joined us in like last August and she's been super critical to just like getting us to where we are now. And it all happened because my ex-girlfriend, basically, we were like, we're looking for accounts people and like, people can help us like grow and scale this thing. And I was like, can you just like post this in Boys Club for us? And then she posted it. And I guess Julie found her. We got connected and
I am obsessed with the story. It's incredible. You guys really buried the lead here. It's amazing.
We really did. I was on that hashtag opportunities channel like all day, every day, trying to find some Web3 gig. And then I saw the post, ended up DMing with her. And then the other, I think it was like a few months ago, maybe like I don't know, 3-4 months ago, we were hiring, I forgot what we're hiring right now, but like we're hiring a couple of roles. And I went back to the original post from his ex-girlfriend and I replied to it and I was like, by the way, I ended up taking this position and now I'm hiring someone for Madison. And it just like all came full circle.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
Julie, I love that story. Thank you so much for being a part of Boys Club and I see you in there all the time and it really warms my heart to hear now about this new part of the journey that I didn't know before. It's amazing. Honestly, it makes it all worth it. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Thanks for creating it. So, and thanks for coming on this podcast.
This podcast would not exist without Boys Club.
Oh
Which
my
is
gosh.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for having me on. This is such a pleasure.
Yeah. This was really
likewise.
awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. And we'll see you online and we'll see you at all the events and we'll keep hanging. Yeah.
Great.
All right. Thanks so much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of W3G. If you'd like to learn more about Web3 marketing, please visit myosin.xyz and subscribe to our newsletter to get started.
And if you're a fan of the show, please be sure to show your support by subscribing and leaving us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.